Hey everybody, Tim Albrecht here, and thank you for listening to the YFP podcast, where each week we strive to inspire and encourage you on your path towards achieving financial freedom. This week I welcome Lindsey Childs-Kean and Britny Brown to the show to talk about PharmGradWishList and the vision they have to support racially and ethnically minoritized pharmacy trainees. We discuss the inspiration for PharmGradWishList, the impact that it's having, and how others can get involved. Before we jump into my conversation with Lindsey and Britny, let's hear a brief message from YFP team member Justin Woods.
Hey, your financial pharmacist community. This is Justin Woods here, Director of Business Development at YFP. You may be one of the 13,000 pharmacists that have already signed up for YFP Money Matters, which is our weekly newsletter. But if you're not, what are you waiting for? I want to invite you to subscribe. We send financial tips, recommendations, the latest podcast episode, and money resources, all specifically for pharmacists. It all comes straight to your inbox every Friday morning. So visit yourfinancialpharmacist.com/newsletter or click the link in the show notes to subscribe today. Again, that's yourfinancialpharmacist.com/newsletter. See you there.
Lindsey and Britny, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, Tim.
Thank you so much. We're very excited to be here.
Let's have you kick us off by introducing yourself to our listeners, including what drew you into the profession and the work that you're doing now.
So I'm Lindsey Childs-Kean. I'm a clinical associate professor at the University of Florida College of Pharmacy. My clinical area of specialty is infectious diseases, but I do most of my time as a faculty member teaching and mentoring pharmacy students. And I could talk a long time about how I got into pharmacy school because I took a very weird trajectory to pharmacy school. But basically, I ended up making the decision that in looking at the healthcare system, there was so much that pharmacists could do that I wanted to be a part of that. And so that's why I went to pharmacy school. And then I also have a master's of public health degree, and my specialty was global infectious diseases. So that's how I got into the infectious disease area and did 2 years of residency, including an infectious disease residency after pharmacy school.
Great. Britny, how about for you?
Yeah, thanks for having us. I'm a clinical associate professor as well at the University of Rhode Island, and my area of focus is oncology. So I would say my trajectory into where I am now started with just being interested in pharmacy, learning more about medications and how we can improve health outcomes. And getting into cancer care, I was initially really intimidated because it's a different language, but seeing the impact that we can have is what drove me towards specifically working with that patient population.
Great. Well, we are excited to have both of you. And while you've had great pharmacy careers, that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're going to be focusing rather on the work that you and others are doing and leading through the PharmGradWishList. So, Britny, let's start with you. Tell us more about PharmGradWishList. What's the mission? How did it get started? What's the goal? What are you trying to achieve?
Absolutely. So PharmGradWishList is a mutual aid organization of 10 practicing pharmacists across the country that make up our leadership team. And our mission is to promote equity by sponsoring racially and ethnically minoritized pharmacists and pharmacist trainees as they progress through the profession. So we did model this after a similar movement in the medical community called MedGradWishList, and it's evolved to more than just wish lists. So that part stems from individuals, trainees usually, making Amazon wish lists and what they need to enter into their pharmacy profession. So it might be a variety of different things, office supplies to help them get started, study materials, and sponsors nationally can work through and identify individuals they'd like to sponsor as they enter their career. In addition, we've also created a scholarship program for the last 2 years, now going into our third year, for individuals that are seeking postgraduate training. So we have some stats with that. Our first year, we sponsored $2,500 scholarships. In our second year, which was 2022 through this spring, we sponsored 39 scholarships. And that encompassed actually just 85 unique donors. So the vast majority of donors actually contributed a significant amount to our sponsees. So we really hope to continue that momentum and bring our movement to other people's attention. And I'll let Lindsey talk a little bit more about what else we've done with our movement as well.
Yeah, so also to note, in addition to that number of scholarships that we've done over 2 years, we also have had well over 100 wish lists each year that have been available for sponsors to choose to support our sponsees. Outside of the wish lists and scholarships, those are obviously our two really big initiatives that we do each year. We've also been able to work with a number of racially and ethnically minoritized trainees in publishing commentaries and other types of articles. We have at least 5 published papers to date.
Wow.
Depending upon when this goes live. Something else might be published by then. And we've got some others in the works. And so we encourage the listeners to go read those publications. We also, because we are recruiting sponsors and sponsees, we put a big focus on communications. So we have a website. We also have a blog where we will write about different issues that are related to racial and ethnic concerns. And we're also active on multiple social media platforms. And so basically, if there's a social media platform, we're probably there. One other thing that we have looked into and we're hoping to expand out is partnering with other pharmacy organizations, both national and state level and regional organizations. And these take different flavors of what we do to help support their trainees in that particular area or within their mission and scope.
So if I heard the two of you correctly, really 3 major areas: scholarships, wish lists, and now on the publication dissemination of information, with an expansion going out to organizations and opportunities for them to get involved as well. Really incredible work. First of all, congratulations. I mean, to see the grassroots efforts of that, 20 to 39 scholarships. That's a big impact. And, there are over 300,000 pharmacists in the country, right? So, Britny, I think you mentioned somewhere in the 75, 80-ish donors that were involved.
85 donors this year. Yep.
85. So what an awesome opportunity. We'll talk about that at the end of the show as well for folks that want to get involved. Let's do it, right? Great work that's being done, but also great opportunities that are still to be had as you look to grow the impact that your work is doing. Lindsey, my question here is why get involved with PharmGradWishList, right? There's lots of different opportunities to give back, to be involved. Certainly, this is an investment of your time, as well as the others that are on the leadership team. What really is the motivation for you to get involved?
So some of our backstory is that the leadership team really formed over the social media platform that used to be called Twitter. And so one of our leadership team members said, hey, there's this MedGrad wish list thing going on. Why don't we do it in pharmacy? And so it was sort of an informal call for others to get involved. And the more I looked into it, I really gravitated towards the very tangible method of support. It's one thing to donate, money or time to a big national organization, but you don't always know where that money and time and effort are going to. Whereas with this, I know very specifically if I buy a set of scrubs for a trainee who's going to be starting residency in a couple of months, that's very tangible. Or if I donate money towards a scholarship, I see that money going directly to that recipient. And so it's a very tangible way to support our efforts to diversify and make our profession more equitable. And so that's what drew me to PharmGradWishList.
Yeah, I really like what you said there. I recently had on the podcast Tom Dauber, who has a career in advancement and giving, working with institutions, most notably colleges of pharmacy. And one of the questions I asked him is, what are donors often looking for, right? As they're making a selection or a choice of a gift. And he talked exactly about what you said, impact, right? Being able to see or feel directly, not only that there's an alignment there of something that they care about, but that they also can, be able to see that change or see the impact that gift is having. So Britny, what about for you? What was the motivation, the inspiration for your involvement?
Similar to Lindsey, I felt very lucky that our colleague Betsy had reached out to us, identifying that we were all kind of like-minded individuals that wanted to see change in terms of representation in our profession. But I think probably similar to many of our listeners, not many of us knew where to start, right? So there wasn't an infrastructure that existed to help make that change. And so I think that's what PharmGradWishList provides, right? That tangible impact that Lindsey was talking about, but also giving you the infrastructure. And hopefully it makes our supporters easily able to access that, right? To see change tangibly in a short period of time, but also to not have to do much work to get there. You just click a link, provide your money or decide what you want to give to someone on their wish list. And it's really as easy as 5 minutes of your time.
Yeah, you guys have done a great job with the website. I think it very succinctly talks about what you're doing, why you're doing it. And for those that are eager to go look at that, we'll mention it at the end as well. Link to it in the show notes. It's PharmGradWishList.org. Again, that's PharmGradWishList.org. I want to talk a little bit, and Britny, I'm going to start with you, and Lindsey, feel free to jump in as well. There was a commentary that the two of you, as well as a group of others, were involved with, published in JAFA in 2022. We'll link to it in the show notes. The title was Brighter Horizons, the Necessity of Concentrated Sponsorship Targeted Toward Minoritized Student Pharmacists, talking a lot about the why and the how of what you've been building at PharmGradWishList. And Britny, perhaps an obvious question, but one that I feel needs to be asked is, why does this mission matter, right? Why does underrepresentation matter in our profession, in healthcare at large? And let me read one passage from the commentary and then get your take on it. That passage is, since the American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy began reporting data on races and ethnicities of student pharmacists in 1985, students who identify as Black, Hispanic, or Latinx, American Indian, or Alaska Native have enrolled and graduated at disproportionately lower rates compared with their demographic makeup and the U.S. population. Why does that matter?
That's a great question. I'm so glad that you're asking it. I think we hear a lot representation matters, right? Regardless of whether we're talking about pharmacy, medicine, politics. Seeing oneself in their profession helps others to, envision that they could potentially one day be there. But we're pharmacists, we like data. So there is data that exists in the healthcare realm that having representation improves health outcomes. Much of this data stems from, medicine doctors that have decreased morbidity or in mortality when they have racially concordant providers. So that's there. We know that it decreases mortality with physicians. Unfortunately, that data hasn't been found yet in pharmacy specifically. However, there has been data that looks at how we improve adherence just by being racially concordant. So one could potentially extrapolate that to say, if you're more adherent to your diabetes medications, you're more likely to, gain control of your diabetes. Likewise with hypertension and cancer. So I think that it's just an opportunity for us to do more research in this area. It's something that we're certainly advocating for our pharmacy colleagues to pursue. But we do know that overall within medicine, that racial concordance does correlate to improved health outcomes, increased patient satisfaction, decreased emergency room utilization, and decreased healthcare utilization for, sick visits and things like that. So there's certainly a precedent that we could set with our research if we have the resources to pursue it.
Which goes back, I think, so well to the mission, right? You've got some tangible opportunities for people to get involved and needs that are there right now. And then when you talk about the research, the publication, the efforts, as more individuals, as more organizations get involved in this, obviously those resources can be really important to allow that research work to be happening and hopefully to add to the literature, of what currently is missing in the pharmacy profession. Let me continue to put you on the hot seat while I have you there, Britny. In the commentary, it also mentions, quote, dismantling structural racism within pharmacy programs requires evaluation of internal and external factors and creation of novel methods to support these students in a holistic manner. What are a couple key points as it relates to internal versus external and the difference between those?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I like to think of internal as, within our own pharmacy programs. So whatever structure we have in place, which might include policies, procedures, our institutional status quo. What have we been doing for the last 100 years that might be inherently racist? And how do we examine that and through an equity lens to see how we might better support our students, right? What microaggressions are occurring in the classroom between professors and students to students that we can improve upon to make students feel like they are empowered to succeed in school and then their profession. So how do we retain our diverse learners? And then externally, I would think of that more as how do we bring diverse people into our profession? So externally, as you said, we don't have good racial representation. So how do we, in a world that is inherently racist, engage people who hadn't traditionally seen themselves in our profession or maybe don't have the same opportunities to accessing postgraduate training, as an example? So I think that's the lens that I view it in. I think there's a lot of different nuances to it that we probably don't have the time to get into today, but maybe just some surface level viewpoints.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to take away from this is one initiative is not going to solve all these problems. PharmGradWishList has a very specific mission that we've already laid out. And so we're not going to do anything about those upstream factors that are preventing diverse groups of people that are getting into pharmacy school. But what we're focused on doing with PharmGradWishList is supporting those individuals who are in pharmacy school and in the pharmacy profession as they move through the profession. And so we, at this point, aren't able to tackle every problem out there. No initiative is.
Sure.
And so we had to pick something to focus on. And this is, as we've said, a very tangible way to support the individuals so that hopefully they are able to bridge the issues and structural racism that they've had to face to get to the point that they're even at.
Yeah. And speaking of very specific ways to get involved, Lindsey, one of the things that commentary I think does a nice job of calling out is when we think about residency as just one example, of other efforts that you have ongoing, one of the things that even in talking about this every week, some of the connections that may not be so obvious is, hey, traditional financial aid, right, which can lead to student indebtedness and other challenges, but there's access to resource there, does not extend to those additional costs, right? When we think about what we often see as somebody who goes through their P4 year, they transition into residency or into fellowship, it is a very difficult financial time, right? Especially if they're applying out of state, application costs, licensure, moving, new things that come with any type of transition like that. So just talk more about why that transition is so important and why PharmGradWishList is wanting to really have an impact, for that group where, again, financial aid may not play a role in being able to support those students.
You're absolutely right, Tim. Students get a set maximum amount of money every year. And that doesn't matter if you are all of a sudden in your last year of pharmacy school and want to pursue postgraduate training. And in all likelihood, that's going to entail some kind of professional clothing to do an interview, likely travel to do interviews, although more and more programs are doing virtual interviews, which that does sometimes help level the playing field a little bit. And, those things just to get to the interview point, in addition to the fees for applications through forecasts and all of that. And then once you get to, as you mentioned, the transition, financial aid ends after that last semester. And there's licensing fees, there are moving fees, lots of different things that happen. And a lot of our students, once they start their first job, they are also in the process of setting up some kind of living arrangement, an apartment or a house or something like that. So these wish lists are meant for them to put whatever it is that they need for that. So again, I've bought everything from reference textbooks to kitchen utensils to scrubs to really nice looking pillows so that they can sleep well off of these wish lists. So not having some kind of financial backing of parents or other individuals is very common in our students and trainees who come from racially and ethnically minoritized groups. And so they don't have that extra cushion like I did in pharmacy school, where I was like, hey, Dad, I need an extra $500 for whatever it was when I was transitioning to residency. A lot of them don't have that. And so that's where the wish lists and the scholarships come into play, where that is, again, tangible money or items that they need in those times where money is probably even more tight than it is to begin with.
Yeah. And I think the further we get from graduation, where some of us were in these shoes, I think the harder it is for us to remember the feeling that was, right? I often talk with students and those transitioning that just have this overwhelming feeling as if they're drowning financially, right? They've got these things that they want to pursue, but there's just so many transition things that are happening. Obviously, student loans are coming back online. They're making moves, as you mentioned. And we actually have an article on our site I was just pulling up as we were talking here that Brandon Dyson from TLDR wrote a few years ago on the cost of the pharmacy residency quest. And he broke it down into 3 phases: the application, the mid-year trip, and then the interview. And that doesn't even account for any of the costs with the transition, right? Once you actually start that residency. And when you start to add these things up, like in the application, you've got registration for the match, registration, for payment for the forecast applications, potentially transcripts that you have to acquire. Then you have the mid-year trip if you're pursuing that, and all of the travel and costs that come with that. And then obviously the travel and costs that come with the interview as well. And so you start to stack some of this up and it adds up. And that typically is a year where financially, because experiential rotations are often a significant financial burden for students, this is something, even on top of that as well, that causes some stress. So such a necessary, I think, effort to help those students in the transition. Britny, with that in mind, is people are listening to this and saying, hey, I want to help, I want to support, I want to get involved, whether that's with the scholarships, whether that's with the grad wish list, whether that's just staying up to date with what you guys are doing and some of the research that you're doing. What's the best place that people can go to learn more and as well to get involved with support?
Absolutely. So our website that you mentioned, PharmGradWishList.org, is a great place to start. And you can actually sign up for our email list at the bottom of the website. So if you scroll all the way down, enter in your email at any page on that website to stay up to date on what's going on. And we will send out communication when scholarships and wish lists go live. In addition, we have social media platforms on Twitter, or X as it's now called, as well as Instagram. On both, our handle is PharmGradWish. And then on LinkedIn, we are PharmGradWishList, and you can find us on Facebook as well.
Awesome. And what about individuals? I think many people listening, are probably interested in getting involved as an individual. But if someone is a leader within an organization, whether it's an association, as was mentioned previously, whether it's a for-profit company and they want to get involved, with making a donation, are there opportunities for organizations, companies to get involved as well?
Absolutely. So I think probably the best way, if you're interested in having a higher level of support, would be to email us at pharmgradwishlist@gmail.com, or you could contact us through our website. Either of those should be good ways to get started. That being said, if you are an institution, we have had individuals kind of rally their departments and their colleagues to support scholarships. So we've had a few instances where they supported multiple scholarships, which was amazing. And then, of course, just helping to get the word out is extremely impactful. As we mentioned earlier, with our scholarships, we had 85 sponsors. So imagine if we could reach even 1,000, which is still just a fraction of practicing pharmacists in the United States. So help us get the word out, share through your institutional newsletters and email listservs when the time comes that our scholarships are live and wish lists are live.
Awesome. So we'll link to that email address as well. You mentioned PharmGradWishList@gmail.com for those that want to reach out with questions, or I know we have business owners listening. I know we have organization leaders listening that can either potentially get involved from a donation in that standpoint individually, or getting their constituents and members involved as well. Lindsey, what does the future hold? What are some of the future directions for PharmGradWishList?
Yeah, so we're excited. We've told you about what we've done the last 2 years, and we really think we're just getting started. So we're looking into additional partnerships with national pharmacy organizations to expand our reach to both trainees that could be sponsees as well as sponsors to help support our sponsees. We are looking into pursuing nonprofit status. Up until now, it's been just us doing the work, but we're looking to potentially be more formal as a nonprofit organization, which we do hope that if we pursue that and then eventually get a 501c3 designation, we hope that will also drive interest in supporting our initiative. And then, as we expand, we have also sort of talked about maybe setting up a committee structure where we might be able to bring additional people on board to do some of the work of the initiative. So again, the website and being signed up for the email listserv are the best places to keep up to date on how all of those things progress. So highly recommend going to the website, PharmGradWishList.org, and signing up for the email alerts. I promise we don't send very many. It's only when we have big things that are happening.
Awesome. Well, that will be the challenge to our community. Make sure you're informed with the work that is being done at PharmGradWishList. You've got the website, PharmGradWishList.org. You can sign up for the newsletter. If you're ready to make a donation and get involved, you can do that as well. Let me wrap up our time by reading a couple of the words of support that you have from sponsees on your website that I think encapsulate so well the impact that you all are having and the work that is being done. The first one is from a 2021 grad who said, quote, "I wanted to reach out and thank you all for the amazing work you're doing with the PharmGradWishList. You've taken the time out of your busy schedules to do this wonderful act of kindness for your future colleagues, and it hasn't gone unnoticed. As a graduating student, I am awe-inspired by the amount of care and effort you have put into this initiative. Thank you for all your hard work. You are changing lives." And from another recent grad, quote, "My goals after graduation are to care for the underserved population and bridge health disparities through direct patient care as a community pharmacist in my home state. Going forward, I hope to become a mentor to other first-generation Asian Americans with goals of becoming a pharmacist, as I know how difficult it can be when it comes to preparing and applying for a competitive program with little guidance. With graduation just around the corner, I am extremely grateful to PharmGradWishList and the entire family for helping me transition from a student pharmacist to a pharmacist." Amazing words there. And I think just so well, really, again, encapsulate the work that you all are doing, the impact that it has. And for those that are looking to get involved and make a donation, the impact that that donation is going to have. So Britny and Lindsey, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show to share the journey, and look forward to following the success ahead.
Thanks so much for having us, Tim.
Thank you.
As we conclude this week's podcast, an important reminder that the content on this show is provided to you for informational purposes only and is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for investment or any other advice. Information in the podcast and corresponding materials should not be construed as a solicitation or offer to buy or sell any investment or related financial products. We urge listeners to consult with a financial advisor with respect to any investment. Furthermore, the information contained in our archived newsletters, blog posts, and podcasts is not updated and may not be accurate at the time you listen to it on the podcast. Opinions and analyses expressed herein are solely those of your financial pharmacist unless otherwise noted, and constitute judgments as of the dates published. Such information may contain forward-looking statements which are not intended to be guarantees of future events. Actual results could differ materially from those anticipated in the forward-looking statements. For more information, please visit yourfinancialpharmacist.com/disclaimer. Thank you again for your support of the Your Financial Pharmacist podcast. Have a great rest of your week.